נברך את מעיין חיינו, שכינת העולם שהחיינו וקיימנו והגיענו לזמן הזה, לזמן הזה.
Hello, my name is Rabbi Bradley Shavit Artson. I'm the Abner and Rosalind Goldstein Dean of the Ziegler School of Rabbinic Studies at American Jewish University. I'm here with my good friend, Rabbi Naomi Levy, who is a noted author of remarkable prayers and soulful books, and also the rabbinic leader of a vibrant spiritual community, Neshuva, located here in Los Angeles. Welcome, Rabbi Levy.
Thank you, Rabbi Artson.
We have a chance to have a conversation about some of the issues that we're engaged in as we prepare for the holy days, and hopefully you'll join us in thinking about some of these issues. And the first one that occurred to me that I'd love for us to reflect on is what may be a distinctively Jewish idea, the idea of nahas, which, is a Yiddish term that comes from the Hebrew. So talk to me about what nahas is and where you can go with it.
I was recently talking to a friend of mine who is Mormon, and I was telling her how much nahas I get from my kids. And she stopped me and she said, I've heard a lot of Jewish words, but what's nahas? And I realized that it's a term that's not easily translatable, and it's a uniquely Jewish idea or feeling. And many of us think of nahas instinctively, that we know what it is, but let's just, say what it is.
Sure.
It's the unique pleasure that a parent gets from a child, or a grandparent from a grandchild, or a teacher from a student, or anybody, a mentor to a disciple. And it's nahas, it's kind of like a taste of heaven. I mean, it involves pride, joy, some kind of I'm quelling.
Right.
It's such a remarkable feeling. And yet, when I think about nahas, when we all think about nahas, we can all remember times or think of occasions when perhaps a parent denied themselves nahas, or ways that we each deny ourselves nahas, either by having expectations that are unrealistic, or by judging, so that we're never able to give ourselves the nahas that we so deserve. And the flip side is that not every one of us is a parent, but we're all someone's child. And how often is it that we withhold nahas? We withhold the opportunity to give somebody nahas, and it takes so little to give nahas, just a call, just a little, hello, guess what happened to me today?
Right.
Guess what I've accomplished? And we withhold it. And as I was talking to this friend of mine who's Mormon and telling her all about nahas, she suddenly started to tear up. And she said to me, but Naomi, is it possible to give nahas to the dead? And suddenly she started to tell me how she felt that she had denied her mother nahas, just in the way that I described, that she didn't give her nahas. And I said to her that I'm fully certain that we have the capacity to give nahas to the dead. And I started to think about Yizkor, and which is something that we always think about when the High Holy Days approach, and about our capacity to bring joy to the dead. And how often is it that we have regrets when someone dies? We say, I wish he could have been here to see this. I wish my mother could be here to see her grandchild. And Yizkor is a time to realize that we have the capacity to give nahas to deceased relatives, and that the connection between the living and the dead isn't severed. That when somebody says, your father was here today at this occasion, I believe that. And that when we're under the chuppah and we welcome deceased relatives to share in the joy of that experience, I believe that.
I certainly think that our tradition holds a large space for the notion that all of us are along this continuum and that we're eternally in God's mind, and that we have access to each other in that way to gain strength from those who've come before and to strengthen them in turn. It occurs to me that one of the ways we don't often talk about nahas is to think about not just the nahas I give to my parents, but what do I get by giving that nahas? And I do think that it's a case of receiving while giving, that knowing that you're satisfying someone who is your caregiver, someone who raised you up, someone who gave you your space in the world, someone who saw you in your greatness and inspired you to go for it, that giving back to them is also a feeding of yourself. It's a way of saying, yes, I have done this wonderful thing, and yes, this is worth noticing, and this vindicates their judgment of me, and all that time that that person put into me, I can help them to know that that wasn't wasted time, that that was real, and that something real happened that made a difference. And then I think about nahas in the other direction.
Can I just stop and say that's a beautiful thought? It's really beautiful, and I think that so often every relationship is complicated, some more than others, but every family has its complications, and very often we become clamped up.
Yes.
We become withholding, and what it means to just give, even in the complication. And there was just an article in the New York Times that talked about happiness, and it said that until we get to a place where we just have our basic comforts met, there's a huge leap, right, in terms of happiness between being in dire poverty and having your comforts met.
Yes.
From the time of having your comforts met until being a very wealthy person, there's not a huge leap in happiness.
Right.
What's the leap in happiness? Giving.
Yes.
Giving.
That's right.
So the capacity to give is what makes us happy.
Because at that moment, we stop being a victim. One of the principles that I try to teach rabbinical students is that a eulogy is not the time to say everything about the deceased. This is not complete reporting of all their... This is highlighting a couple things that are real and noble about that individual, or meaningful in a good way about that individual, because it strengthens us. And I think in the same way that when you're in a complicated relationship, and what relationship isn't, to be able to say, I'm going to rise above the disappointing parts, or the aggravating parts, or the pressure parts, and I'm going to put myself in the position of giving nahas, really giving.
Yeah.
You stop being a victim.
That's beautiful.
Right? You become a giver.
And then there's this other level, which I never really thought about before until I started reading Hasidic texts, which is la'asot nachat ruach liyotzro, to give God nahas.
That's right.
To give God nahas. And who doesn't have a complicated relationship with God?
That's right.
What have you done for me lately, God?
And please do it to someone else and stop doing it to me.
Yes, and sometimes I think when we're all in shul on Rosh Hashanah, we're all in shul Yom Kippur, how much nahas does God get just from having us there?
Well, and Naomi, let me push that a little. How much nahas does God get from the little good things we do throughout the day? And to be able to, I know that for myself, when I can look at a person who's annoying me and think, okay, if I was their father, what would I see in them? And you see them instantly differently, just framing it that way. So to think about God as Avinu Shabbat Imenu Shabbat our mother, father in heaven, and to think, what is it I did today that made God smirk? What is it that made God smile? What is it that made God say, oh, that little imp, he's doing it again, how cute. Right? The times where, as parents, we have to look like we're angry at our kids, and we have to hide the smile because they're just so full of life energy that it's delicious, even though we have to teach them not to do whatever it is they were doing. To think about God having that relationship with us, and then again, I want to turn it around. Can we get nahas from God? Can we say, nice job, that was really
Yeah, that Grand Canyon.
heck of a sunset, and what you've done with my teenage daughter, fabulous.
Thank you. Yes.
My son who surpasses himself every day, great. Or a student who achieves something that I know they've been working on, right? that kind of web of nahas really creates a way in which people can thrive and in which life can be savored, don't you think?
Absolutely. And gratitude
Flows from that, doesn't it?
It's the key.
Yeah. And that really helps us, I think, as we turn into this high holiday season, to cultivate being givers of nahas and receivers of nahas in an interlocking web of love and relationship and gratitude. I want to thank Rabbi Naomi Levy of Neshuva for joining us for this wonderful conversation. Thank you for joining us as well.
Thank you.